Today we are going to talk about saber and conocer. Both of these verbs mean to know, and they have kind of a similar relationship to the verbs ser and estar, which both mean to be. They're just used in different ways. They're not interchangeable. Just like that, saber and conocer both translate to know in English, and they're not interchangeable. And when you think about it, if you remember that the verb hacer, which means to do or to make, whenever we are trying to create sentences in Spanish, anytime we want to say to do or to make, we just use the verb hacer. So we have one verb for something that we use for multiple things in English. So it's kind of the opposite of that. We have a lot of different ways to say to know in English. For example, I know Manuela. I know how to dance. I know about Rigoberta Menchú. So we can use the word to know in a lot of different ways in English. But in Spanish, we have two different verbs that we have to use depending on what or who it is that we know. So again, the verbs are saber and conocer. And we're going to start by taking a look at saber, and then we will work on conocer. So saber means to know, and we use this when we're talking about knowing facts or information. So if you know facts or information, we're going to use saber. This is also used with skills. If you want to say that you know how to do something, you're going to conjugate saber and follow it with an infinitive verb. Now remember the rule in Spanish: when you have two verbs together, the first verb is conjugated and the second one must be infinitive when they're right next to each other. So you would conjugate saber according to who knows, and then next to it put the infinitive verb of what they know how to do. And by combining an infinitive verb with saber, it implies how to do something. It's important to mention that saber is often followed by verbs, how to, and by question words, interrogative words: who, what, where, when, why, how, which. And so because these question words are asking for information or stating information, we're going to use that with saber because it's all about information. It's all about facts and knowing something, knowing information. Let's go over the conjugations of the verb saber. So in the yo form, we have sé. Tú sabes. Él, ella, usted sabe. Nosotros sabemos. Vosotros en España sabéis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes saben. So I'm going to say the conjugations one more time, and I'd like you to repeat, please. Repiten, por favor. Sé. Sabes. Sabe. Sabemos. Sabéis. Saben. Now you'll notice that saber is irregular in the yo form, the first person. It's irregular, meaning it doesn't follow the normal patterns of conjugation. So if you've ever heard the phrase no sé means I don't know. It comes from saber, to know or not know something. All right, so if we want to say I know, no, yo sé. You know, tú sabes. He, she, or usted knows, sabe. We know, sabemos. Vosotros, you all in Spain, know, sabéis. And they all, or you all everywhere else, saben. All right. Now, before we start comparing saber and conocer, let's take a look at conocer. So for conocer, we are going to use this when we're talking about knowing a person. So if I know someone, I know a person, I'm going to use conocer. Also, if I know a place, as in I'm familiar with the place, I know Flint, Michigan. I'm familiar with Flint, Michigan. I am thoroughly, personally acquainted with and familiar with Flint, Michigan. I've driven around it. I work there. I've lived there. I know Flint, Michigan. I'm going to use conocer. We do not ever follow conocer with a verb or an interrogative word, because if we were to follow it with a verb, it would mean to know how to do something, and that is saber. Also, we won't follow it with an interrogative word because question words are asking for information. And if we're asking if someone knows information, we're always going to use saber. So that's a little tip when you're trying to decide, is it saber, is it conocer? We will never follow conocer with a verb or an interrogative word. And again, those interrogative words are words like who, what, where, when, why, how, which, words like that. All right, let's go over the conjugations of the verb conocer. Conozco, conoces, conoce, conocemos, conocéis, conocen. So, yo conozco, I know. Tú conoces, you know. Él, ella, usted conoce. So he, she, or you, formal, knows. Nosotros conocemos, we know. Vosotros conocéis, you all in Spain know. And while we're talking about Spain, how would they pronounce conocéis in Spain? So in Spain, we have what's called distinction. When you have a CE or CI or the letter Z, you're going to pronounce it kind of like a TH sound. So conocéis, how we would say it in Latin America, in Spain would be conocéis. So vosotros conocéis. All right, and ellos, ellas, ustedes conocen. So they, a group of males, they, a group of females, or you all, everywhere else except for Spain, no, conocen. All right, so one more time. Saber is used if we're talking about knowing facts or information, knowing how to do something, so a skill, and can often be followed by a verb or an interrogative word. Conocer is to know a person or people, to be thoroughly familiar with a place or thing, or to be acquainted with a place or thing, and cannot be followed by a verb or an interrogative word. Okay, now let's take a look at some examples so we can see the contrast between saber and conocer. All right. Yo sé cuál es la capital de España. I know what the capital, or which is the capital of Spain. So I know that the capital, I know what is the capital of Spain. So I know that Madrid is the capital of Spain. I have lived in Madrid. I know that it is the capital. I know information. This is a fact. I know information. I know that Madrid is the capital of Spain. Here, yo conozco Madrid. I know Madrid, as in I am very familiar with Madrid. I lived in Madrid for a few years. I would walk the streets and take the subway and go to the museums. I know Madrid very well. So I'm going to use conocer to indicate that I am thoroughly familiar or acquainted with Madrid. All right. Yo sé mucho sobre Rigoberta Menchú. I know a lot about Rigoberta Menchú. So here I'm stating not that I know her, that I know about her. So I know information. It is a fact that I know about Rigoberta Menchú. I'm not saying that I know her. In this sentence, I'm saying that I know about her. That is indicating information, which means that we're going to use saber. In this example, yo conozco Rigoberta Menchú. I know Rigoberta Menchú. I do know Rigoberta Menchú. I had the pleasure of meeting her, and she signed a book for me, and she's a wonderful person. And if you ever have the chance to hear her speak or read one of her books, you should. She's fantastic. So I'm going to use conozco a Rigoberta Menchú because I know her. I'm familiar with her. I've met her. So I'm going to use conocer in that example. Here, yo sé cocinar. Sé hacer tacos y enchiladas. So I know how to cook. Remember, if you follow saber with a verb in the infinitive form, it means how to do whatever the action is. So here, cocinar means to cook. I know how to cook. I know how to make tacos and enchiladas. So I know I have a skill how to cook. I know how to cook. I know how to make enchiladas and tacos. So this is a skill, information. It's going to be saber, right here. And over here, conozco muy bien la cocina mexicana. I know Mexican cuisine very well. I lived in Mexico. I love Mexican food. I have Mexican friends. I know how to cook Mexican food. I know it very well. I am very familiar with what Mexican cuisine is like and how to cook it. I'm very, very familiar with Mexican cuisine. So I can say, conozco muy bien la cocina mexicana. I can use conocer here because I'm thoroughly familiar with this topic, with this thing, Mexican cuisine. All right, down here. Yo sé llegar al aeropuerto de Detroit. I know how to arrive at the airport of Detroit, or at Detroit's airport. So I have the skills and the knowledge, so information, of how to arrive or get to the airport in Detroit. So again, we're going to use saber. Here, conozco el aeropuerto de Detroit. I know the airport in Detroit. I have flown out of the airport many times. I'm very familiar with the airport itself. So I'm going to use conocer because I am thoroughly familiar. I'm personally familiar with this place, el aeropuerto, in Detroit. So I'm going to use conocer. All right, and one more thing I want to mention. The reason that I have yo in parentheses is because we don't need the yo. I only put it here as part of the example, just to re-illustrate what my subject was. But remember that by conjugating the verb, I don't have to use the subject pronoun here. So if I put sé, it's conjugated. That can only mean yo sé. It can only be for the yo form. So we don't need the yo. That's why it's in parentheses. Okay, clase. So saber and conocer both mean to know, and they're used in different ways. Kind of like ser and estar both mean to be, and they're not interchangeable either. So it's important to know what you're trying to say. Do you know information and facts or skills? Do you know a person or are thoroughly familiar or acquainted with a place or thing? That is going to determine whether you're going to use saber or conocer. All right, clase, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm here for you, and I'm always happy to help. Gracias. Hasta luego.